Good morning, children. We were solving cash book and we are continuing with the same topic. So, here you can see a question written on the screen. Prepare a double column cash book with cash and bank columns from the following information. Now, here, if you would see that the mentioned things is cash book with cash and bank columns. By now, we had just been studying single column cash book in which we just had to prepare cash column and not bank column. But today onwards, we have to start with the double column cash book in which we have to prepare cash and bank both the columns. Right? So, in the beginning of this chapter, we already have discussed that cash book is prepared on two bases. The first one is single column cash book in which only cash transactions are recorded. The second thing was double column cash book in which all the transactions which are taking place into monetary values, either the payment has been made through bank or cash, both need to be recorded. In the same way, the receipt amount, whether it's receipt in cash or in bank, these two also has to be recorded. So here we have to study double column cash book in which we have to prepare both cash and bank column. That means by now what we had been doing, we had been preparing a column of amount. Now that amount column need to be bifurcated into two. That is cash amount and bank amount. We'll just see to the format. We already have discussed the format, but here we'll also be studying. Okay, so here we go with the format. The format you can see date, particular, LF. This we also had in single column cash book. Here we had amount column. Now, but as we already discussed that this amount column is further classified into two. Cash column and bank column. This is the only difference when it comes to single column cash book and double column cash book. In case of single column cash book, we here had amount in total, that is cash and bank total was written as amount and which only cash transactions were recorded. But now that amount is bifurcated into two, cash and bank. And the same goes with the credit side, date, particular, LF, cash and bank. This is our credit side and this is our debit side. So as we already had been discussing. Right, students? Sorry. Okay, moving towards, we have to prepare double column cash book for which we are given an information on 1st Jan 2012 cash in hand 7500 and bank overdraft 3500. But before we start solving this question, here you can see it is written bank overdraft. Now we should understand what does bank overdraft means. So students, bank overdraft is a negative balance of bank. It's a negative balance of our bank balance. We can say that it's a facility which is given by bank to its current account holder to withdraw extra money. For example, you had rupees 1 lakh in your account, but you issued a check of rupees 1 lakh 10,000. So definitely you had rupees 1 lakh in your account, but you issued rupees 1 lakh 10,000 ka check. So 10,000 will be paid by bank extra and that is the amount of overdraft. That means any amount withdrew extra on the available balance of your account. Now you must be wondering that can we issue any amount of check? No. There is a limit called overdraft limit which is provided to you by bank. That is the maximum limit that you can avail. For example, here if you would have given a limit of 15,000, that means you could have withdrew only 15,000 extra. That means you could hardly have issued a check of 1,15,000 that bank would have cleared. This overdraft I'll be sending you in case of PDF. So I guess you people are understanding with overdraft. Now what happens here, students, that this extra balance that we withdrew from bank is a negative balance because we did not had that amount into our account, but bank paid on our behalf. So now for this amount we are liable to the bank, and that is why always remember that unlike bank balance was considered your asset, but bank overdraft is always your liability. It is the negative balance that lies with the bank and which you are liable to pay. Got it, students? So technically we can say that since it's a liability and it will always have which balance? It will always have credit balance, right, students? Yes. So here what we have is cash in hand 7,500 and bank overdraft 3,500. Now cash in hand is having debit balance because it's asset, whereas bank overdraft being a liability will have a credit balance. So let's check how do we write it. So we go to cash book. Since cash is having debit balance, so we have written here to balance brought down 7,500. But bank, since having overdraft balance, that is negative balance, will write it on the credit side, that is by balance brought down 3,500. Right, students? Moving to the next point. The next point you have here is paid wages. Now we paid wages of rupees 200. So now what is happening here? We paid wages. That means cash is going out, which means we have to record it on the credit side. Journal entries, you already know that wages account debit to cash account. So here we'll go to credit side and we'll write by wages account. Now you should have a question in our mind that since the amount of wages paid 200 is not given whether it is paid in cash or through bank. So we'll assume that it is paid by cash because since no information is mentioned, we assume that the payment is made through cash. Right, students? By wages account. Moving to the next point. Next point we have is cash sales. Cash sales does not mean sale of cash, but it simply means sold goods on cash basis. So simply what is happening here? We sold goods and we received cash of rupees 7,000. So since we received cash, it is receipt, and we always have studied that receipt of cash is always recorded on the debit side, that is to sales. And if you can look in the form of journal entries, cash account debit to sales account. Since cash had been debited, so we had been to the debit side of cash, but the name of the opposite party, that is to sales account. Right, students? The next point we have is cash deposited into bank. Now here it is doing something important to us. Cash deposited into bank. That means cash need to be subtracted. at bank need to be added, right? Here you have both the columns, cash and bank. So how should you give the effect? Very important, it should be remembered very clearly. Since bank got increased, bank will be debited, and cash got decreased, it will be credited. And here this entry is termed as contra entry. This entry is termed as contra entry. We'll discuss is cash deposited into bank. Bank account debit to cash account. So what we have to do here is we'll go to debit side. Since bank is being debited, so we'll write in bank column, but what we'll write? To cash account. We'll write to cash account because bank is debited through cash. And we'll go to credit side. We'll write here by bank account and amount to the cash column because cash was paid. So cash going out means credit. Bank receiver debit side. So here, and as you can see here in the column of LF we have written here C. C stands for contra entry. Got it, students? The next point we have is goods purchased and paid by check. Now here what happened that we purchased goods and the amount paid through check. That means payment is made by bank. So obviously it's a payment, cash is going out but from bank. So what we are supposed to do here is we'll go to credit side and we'll write by purchases account. And since payment was made through check, that means bank account from the bank column. Technically, if you see in the form of journal entries, so purchases account debit to bank account. Since purchases got debited and bank got credited, so we'll go to credit side of bank account and we'll write by purchases account. The next point we have is paid rent. Now since we paid rent, that means cash again is going out. So we'll go to credit side since payments always written on credit side and receipts always written on debit side of cash book. So by rent account. Nothing was mentioned, that means we'll pay it in the form of cash. Right, students? And if you can see in the form of journal entry, rent being expenditure, rent account debit to cash account. Since cash got credited, so we are on the credit side of cash and will write by rent account. The next point we have is withdrawn from bank for personal use. Now withdrew from bank but for personal use. Personal use is termed as drawing, which means drawings account debit to bank account. Why not cash? Because the amount is withdrawn from bank. So bank has been credited and we'll go to credit side of bank and we'll write by drawings account. Simply, even if you look not from the journal point of view, simple thing is that cash bank balance is reduced because of drawing. So since it is reduced, it is paying, and that's why it need to be written on the credit side of cash book. The next point we have is salary paid. Now since we paid salary, again money is going out, that means cash is going out. So we'll go to credit side and we'll write here by salary account. And amount column will be written 1000. If you look in the form of journal entry, so salaries account debit to cash account. And that's why since cash is being credited, we had been on the credit side of cash book and we have written by salaries account. Right, students? Balance carried down should be ignored for a while. Now since we have end with the last point, now our work of closure will start. So as you can see here, cash 7,500 plus 7,000 comes to 14,500. And as we already have discussed that cash will always have greater balance on the debit side. Still, let's have a look. But ignoring this balance carried down because this is the balance that we have got at the end. So on the credit side, what we have is we have 1000 plus 500 plus 4000 plus 200. 4200, 4700, 5700. That means debit side 14,500 and credit side 5,700. So obviously debit is greater. So what we are supposed to do is we'll subtract this 5,700 from 14,500. Let's check it out. 14,500 minus 5,700, which comes to 0, 0. 15 minus 7, 8. 13 minus 5, again 8. That comes to 8,800. And this is the balance that we are left with. So here you can see by balance carried down 8,800. Right, students? So this is the closing balance of cash. That means technically at the end of the month of January, we are left with a balance of rupees 8,800 in our hands with the cash account. That means cash we have at the end of the month is 8,800. Now moving towards the closure of bank account. And here please note down a very important point that bank can have debit balance as well as credit balance. As we already have discussed that it is possible that we would have withdrawn excess amount from the bank. So what we are supposed to do here is before closure we'll check the debit balance and credit balance and we'll have to see which balance is greater. So here if you see two balance carried down. Ignoring this, we can see on the debit side there is a balance of 4,000 in the bank account. Let's check on the credit side. So here we have 3,500 plus 2,000 plus 400. This comes to 3 plus 2, 5, 5,900. So here it is 5,900 whereas on the debit side it is 4,000. Obviously 5,900 is greater, which means we have greater balance on the credit side. We have greater balance on the credit side and we'll write it on the both the sides. Now what we are supposed to do is 5,900 minus 4,000, that is greater balance minus smaller balance. The difference is 1,900. So technically we have negative balance, that is overdraft balance of 1,900. And here we'll write two balance carried down 1,900. Right, students? And this is our overdraft balance. As you can see here, it's a bank overdraft balance. Now at the end, on 1st February, the closing balance of 31st January will be opening balance of 1st February. Because the last night we have closed with something, we'll start with that point only in the morning today. So basically, balance carried down cash ka will take on the debit side as it is technically a debit balance. And here it will be written on the credit side, that is by balance brought down. Bank ka balance negative side and cash balance positive side. Now here we have ended with our question.